Hackers practice.
딕테이션 연습.
1.
We have an outdoor picnic area which includes barbecue facilities. We have an outdoor picnic area which includes barbecue facilities.
2.
The price for the tour is $40 and adding lunch will be $20 extra. The price for the tour is $40 and adding lunch will be $20 extra.
3.
The view of Tower Bridge from the river is great. The view of Tower Bridge from the river is great.
4.
The train will arrive at 3:30 p.m. and our bus is at 4 p.m. The train will arrive at 3:30 p.m. and our bus is at 4 p.m.
5.
You might want to incorporate survey results from educational studies in your report. You might want to incorporate survey results from educational studies in your report.
6.
In ego depletion, an individual exercises self-control to suppress desires. In ego depletion, an individual exercises self-control to suppress desires.
7.
Installing solar panels on your house can decrease your electricity bills by more than half. Installing solar panels on your house can decrease your electricity bills by more than half.
8.
A successful company must analyze its performance as often as possible to make adjustments for the future. A successful company must analyze its performance as often as possible to make adjustments for the future.
9.
The Maori people performed dances to the rhythmic movements of a ball on string. The Maori people performed dances to the rhythmic movements of a ball on string.
10.
The cylinders on the machine roll the recycled materials into a sheet. The cylinders on the machine roll the recycled materials into a sheet.
11.
On average, women in the United States earn 78.6% of what men do. On average, women in the United States earn 78.6% of what men do.
12.
The clownfish and the sea anemone help one another with basic survival needs. The clownfish and the sea anemone help one another with basic survival needs.
13.
8 hours of sleep per night can improve the brain's retention of memory. 8 hours of sleep per night can improve the brain's retention of memory.
14.
The Central Plateau is a flat stretch covering northern Mexico. The Central Plateau is a flat stretch covering northern Mexico.
15.
The Socratic method is a way of facilitating cooperative communication among students and teachers. The Socratic method is a way of facilitating cooperative communication among students and teachers.
16.
The geologist Charles Lyell was a pioneer in the study of the causes of earthquakes, who has shaped our contemporary view of geology. The geologist Charles Lyell was a pioneer in the study of the causes of earthquakes, who has shaped our contemporary view of geology.
유형 연습 Section 2. You will hear a talk by an organization representative at a meeting about a charity event. First, you have some time to read through questions 1 to 4. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 4.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for coming to this Anne-Marie Charity member meeting. I'm so pleased to see so many members here tonight, and I always appreciate your generosity, compassion, and concern. I know you are eager to hear about our institution's progress. Our annual charity bicycle tour raises money for medical research at the London Children's Hospital. Each year, a group of generous individuals dedicates 10 days to cycling around England to raise both funds and awareness. And might I say that it's a fun time as well. Now, I know some of you are interested in participating and want to know how you can get involved. Well, it is fairly easy. First, you must register for the event, which you can do on the charity's website. You don't even have to visit our office. After that, you'll be asked to sign a form on which you will give us an estimate of how much money you plan to raise. We recommend our participants attempt to raise a minimum of £3,000, but we certainly encourage you to raise more than that. Next, you will need to find sponsors who agree to donate a predetermined amount of money to you should you finish the tour. It's always a good idea to start with friends and family first, but many participants have also raised funds from local businesses. And then you have to show up for the tour on June 12th at 6 a.m. with your bicycle, gear and equipment. You don't have to worry about bringing any documents, although something proving your identity might be helpful. I'll hand out a leaflet that will tell you everything you need to know. And you will also be given a number to pin onto the back of your shirt. This will allow us to track who successfully finishes. And once you've completed the tour, collect the donations from your various sponsors and give them to us by June 26th. Finally, the charity will provide you with receipts by the end of June. You can give these to people who ask for them for tax purposes. It's mid-March now, so that means you have plenty of time to find sponsors. And we do offer support in the way of informational brochures, and of course, we will always be here to answer your questions or respond to your concerns. Now, before we go on to the next topic of discussion, are there any questions about this year's charity tour?
You now have 15 seconds to check your answers.
Section 3. You will hear a conversation between a tutor and a graduate student at the College of Education. First, you have some time to read through questions 5 to 8. Now listen carefully and answer questions 5 to 8.
Hi, Sarah. Come on in. You said you wanted to discuss the research project you're working on. You know, the one on children's outdoor play.
Yes. It's going well. I've put together a plan and have set myself some research goals.
Great. What are they?
Well, I mostly want to find out what the benefits of outdoor play are. Then, I'd like to examine why it has decreased in recent years.
That sounds good. Do you have evidence for the claim that children's play has decreased?
I do. I have government statistics showing that playgrounds are used 25% less often than they were a decade ago.
Okay, it sounds like you have some good research there.
Thanks, but the issue I'm having is how to find research on why children's outdoor play has decreased. There isn't much out there. What do you suggest?
Well, the best thing to do is to conduct a survey of your own. You can ask parents with children at local schools to answer it. I can put you in touch with a few head teachers who could help.
Great. I'll start thinking about some questions.
Yes, that will be the first step. Try and test out a few hypotheses through your survey. So, have you got any ideas for why outdoor play is decreasing?
I have. I think that the increasing amount of media aimed at children, including television, apps, online games and so on, has something to do with it. And then, other things, like children being expected to devote more time to intense academic work after school could be factors. Also, there may be fewer playgrounds or green spaces for children to use.
Those all sound like plausible reasons. I think parents may also have an effect on this issue.
That could be. Perhaps parents are less willing to let children play alone outside than they once were.
Yes, that may be true.
Okay, so for the first step, I think I should start writing the survey.
Yes, you can go ahead and begin that. When you're done, send it to me and I'll give you some feedback. And after that, we can get in touch with some teachers that may be able to circulate it. The teachers would be interested in seeing what you...
You now have 15 seconds to check your answers.
Section 3. You will hear a conversation between two students about a biology assignment. First, you have some time to read through questions 9 to 13. Now listen carefully and answer questions 9 to 13.
Natalie, have you finished your outline for the report we've been assigned? You know, the one about the biology field trip to Hawthorne Oceanic Research Facility.
Hi, Greg. I'm still thinking about what topic to focus on. I thought maybe the subject of symbiosis.
Oh, yes. I remember that the chapter about it in our textbook was really fascinating, particularly the symbiotic relationships involving cleaner fish, like the wrasse fish we studied.
And there were moray eels at the Hawthorne facilities, as well as wrasse fish. I can describe in detail the cleaning process between those two species.
What did that involve again?
Well, the moray eels and wrasse fish were in the same tank living on a reef. The wrasse fish gathered inside the reef and hung around until other fish showed up.
Ah, I remember. The eels went there to be cleaned.
Yes, Mr. Horace explained that.
He did. He said they usually gathered together near the cleaning station.
Yeah, and then the wrasse fish would approach the moray eels there while they were resting. And that's when they would start the cleaning process.
Right, I remember. First, they clean up the eel's gills by eating parasites and bacteria.
Yes, they actually eat that stuff right off the eels. And they pick away the dead scales as well.
Actually, you might also want to mention that the eels really rely on the fish because the parasites they eat are quite dangerous.
Uh-huh.
Also, at the end, the moray eels would often open their mouths and let the wrasse fish swim inside to clean as well. I thought it was really fascinating to see that part of the process.
Now, all I have to do is come up with some other examples of symbiotic relationships.
Check out the list of references on Mr. Horace's course outline. I'm sure you can find something suitable on it.
You now have 15 seconds to check your answers.
Section 3. You will hear a conversation between a tutor and a student about a university course. First, you have some time to read through questions 14 to 17. Now, listen carefully and answer questions 14 to 17.
Hi, I've come to ask a few questions about the literature degree you offer.
Oh, yes. Well, I'm a tutor for undergraduate literature students here at Southampton University. My name is Joanna. Could you give me your name?
My name's Tom Atkins. I'm hoping to enroll in a literature program this coming term.
Oh, really? Are you working at the moment?
I am currently working part-time at a publishing company as an editing administrator for a monthly journal, but I work from home for only about 10 hours per week, so I have time to study, and I am particularly interested in the comparative literature course, especially the elements related to post-colonial literature. I studied that a bit in a previous literature class I took, and am curious to learn more.
That's my field of study too. So, are you interested in studying full-time?
Yes, I am. And I'd like to know a bit more about the other requirements for the course, how long it will take, and what are the required courses and alternative courses.
Of course. The degree takes 3 years to complete. In the first year, there are 3 modules you have to take, which are introductory courses in literature and literary theory, in addition to 1 optional module within the department.
What are the subjects for the optional modules?
They change every year, but past modules have been on topics like Indian literature, basically thematic courses.
And I can only take 1 optional module?
You won't have room in your schedule for any more during the first year, unfortunately. But in the second year, you have only 1 compulsory module and can take 3 optional ones. The second year's modules are much more specific, and they will allow you to focus your studies before the dissertation the following year. And then, in your third year, the modules will help determine the kind of research you do for your dissertation.
That's very helpful, actually. Also, I'm wondering about...
You now have 15 seconds to check your answers.
Section 4. You will hear part of a lecture about people living near active volcanoes. First, you have some time to read through questions 18 to 21. Now listen carefully and answer questions 18 to 21.
All right now, since we are talking this week about volcanoes, I thought it might be interesting to step away a bit from the geological analysis and look at what it would be like to live near an active volcano. It seems quite strange that someone would choose to live near something that could erupt at any time, right? Well, there are actually some advantages to building a home near a volcano, and these advantages reveal a lot about how volcanoes impact the local environment. One benefit of living near a volcano is that you have access to unlimited geothermal energy. Geothermal energy, as you may know, is energy that is generated and stored in the earth. Heat that naturally occurs in the Earth's crust can be converted into energy that can be used for electricity. This energy is harnessed by utilizing the underground steam that has been heated by the Earth's magma. This steam drives turbines in geothermal power stations to produce electricity. It's a clean and sustainable form of energy, so countries with a lot of volcanoes take advantage of this. Look at, for example, Iceland. About 66% of its energy comes from these steam-powered turbines. In fact, only 0.1% of all energy in the nation comes from fossil fuels. So not only can we harness energy from volcanoes, but there's also some of the most fertile soil in the world around volcanoes. You see, when a volcano erupts, it throws out ash. At first, that ash can do some damage to nearby flora, fauna, and humans as well. But in the long term, the ash layer that accumulates on the Earth's surface is converted into a very rich soil because the ash is loaded with minerals. So people who live off the land near volcanoes have abundant agricultural production, prompting them to return even after serious eruptions. And lastly, volcanoes help to create lots of tourism. Think about Hawaii. What is on the top of the list of attractions to do while on the islands? That's right, visiting a volcano. And there are often other natural wonders around that are created by volcanoes. Hot springs, geysers, and interesting rock formations, just to name a few. These tourists need places to stay and eat, and tour guides to show them around. And have I mentioned that tourists love to shop? So living near a volcano practically guarantees that you'll be able to find employment. That's why there are generally large populations living in close.
You now have 15 seconds to check your answers.
Section 4. You will hear a student giving a presentation on composting. First, you have some time to read through questions 22 to 25. Now, listen carefully and answer questions 22 to 25.
Hello everyone, the topic that I chose to present on today is the composting of organic trash materials. Now, many of us probably place our food waste in bins, so it can be picked up and brought to a waste management facility. In a survey that was conducted in my neighborhood, over 90% of residents do this, but only about 20% of them know what happens to their waste at the facility. So, what I'll show you all today is a prototype miniaturized version of the machines used to compost organic materials at waste management facilities. Now, here it is, and I can assure you that it's delightfully simple to use. The top of the device acts very similarly to a recycling bin. The food waste is placed in this bin before it is processed. Once this lever on the side is pulled, the materials being processed then proceed into another chamber shaped like a drum, which rotates for about 20 minutes for each cycle. This chamber churns the waste, breaking the organic materials down into a consistent size and shape. After that, the organic materials that have been broken up are kept in the drum for 6 weeks. During this time, the materials are exposed to oxygen, which reacts with organic components such as carbon, protein, nitrogen, and water molecules, as well as microorganisms. This is actually a chemical reaction taking place, which produces two byproducts, carbon dioxide and heat. When 6 weeks have passed, the finished compost is complete. By lifting this lid on the side here, biodegradable matter is expelled. This in turn can be safely added to the soil. This is convenient for home use, since the spillage can immediately be spread onto your lawn or garden or stored in a separate bin for later use. So as you can see, this composting machine is small and simple enough for everyday use. And I hope this is what it is used for in the near future. So now, I'll take any questions that you have for me.
You now have 15 seconds to check your answers. Hackers Test.
Section 4. You will hear a part of a lecture given by a professor in a business class about a form of effective customer service. First, you have some time to read through questions 1 to 10. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 10.
Good afternoon, everyone. The last few lectures dealt with how important it is for businesses to maintain positive relationships with their customers. Today, we'll quickly review the case study you all read last week. Then we'll continue our discussion on the customer service chapter of our textbook about the service recovery paradox. First, what is service recovery paradox? Well, it is when a negative business situation can be used to create a positive opinion among consumers. Now, the company in the case study you've read about in the textbook ran into a major problem when the line of smartphones it manufactures was discovered to be largely defective immediately after its launch date. Nearly 1 million of the devices had touchscreens that were completely irresponsive. And how was the company able to turn this negative circumstance around? It promised to repair all of its defective phones for free. Additionally, it allowed any customer who purchased one of the devices to get a complimentary upgrade to the latest model when it came out the following year. Interestingly enough, consumer opinion of the company was better than it had ever been after the launch of the defective line. This swing in consumer opinion from negative to positive due to a company's efforts following a service failure is a good example of the service recovery paradox. Some studies even show that overall customer loyalty to a company increases after a negative event that is addressed successfully. The main point here is that a good business knows that an issue with a service or a product is a great opportunity to increase customer loyalty. There's significant empirical evidence showing that customers are generally more pleased when a company shows interest in accommodating their needs. This is mainly because customers believe the company has gone above and beyond to take care of them in a special way. And displaying concern is an important technique for any professional in the customer service field to use. Now that everyone seems to have a good understanding of what the service recovery paradox is, I want to look at the 4 factors that contribute to it. First of all, there's the customer's perceived value of the service or product recovery to consider. Customer needs are unique according to each individual's various desires, so different solutions will satisfy different clients. In our case study, it's important to keep in mind that the free upgrade to the new phone model was sufficient to some customers, but not to others. This is what is meant by a customer's perceived value of the recovery. Second, we can also look at customers' levels of dissatisfaction as every business endeavors to decrease them overall, and customer dissatisfaction, like a customer's perceived value of the service recovery, is always subjective. There isn't a definitive solution for any problem. In the case study, for example, the general opinion of the corporation's products immediately following the defective product launch was largely negative. This indicated a high level of customer dissatisfaction. But high ratings from consumers resulted after the service recovery. This revealed the company's exceptional ability to minimize the number of dissatisfied customers. Next, it's important to consider how much trust a customer places in a business. Although companies rely on growth and new consumers, it is brand loyalty that is a more powerful asset to any company. And sometimes, a customer will be less displeased with a company if they have long been loyal to it. And lastly, there's the possibility of customers changing their service. What this means is that customers might switch to a competing business in the event of a service failure. Therefore, companies feel the need to give disappointed customers something to convince them to stay. In the case study, the offer of a complimentary upgrade may have been enough to cause them to remain with their existing company, rather than switch to a competing brand. However, the service recovery paradox isn't applicable in every situation. Customers are typically content when a one-time problem is taken care of. But poor quality products that fail repeatedly don't build consumer trust for companies. So, obviously, if customers continue to run into trouble with a company, satisfaction levels will be lower. However, having service recovery in place guarantees that problems will be taken care of when they arise. Accordingly, service recovery is an essential backup plan for customer service managers. And that's what I want to emphasize for today's lecture. All right, I'll take any questions that you might have at this time.
That is the end of section 4. You now have half a minute to check your answers.